Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's Global Intelligence Update. If you're joining in live from the webinar, welcome. If you're joining in on the podcast offline, it's going to be quite an interesting show. So we've got someone special here today, Elias Kanaris. Welcome, Elias.
Oh, kia ora. Thank you for having me here.
Yeah, no, it's actually our honor. You've been doing so great and made time for us to be on the show. So we really appreciate it. And for those that don't know who Elias is, let me give you guys an introduction. So Elias is a thought leader in the area of resilience, leadership, and building trust. He works with CEOs and their teams, building high-performance teams, navigating adversity, and introducing the T.R.U.S.T, trust as a business currency. With over 25 years of experience in corporate and not-for-profit organizations, Elias has used his experience to become an expert in helping leaders lead. He has developed a blueprint to empower organizations to protect their brand, retain top talent, while protecting their bottom line. Elias is the CEO of the Insight Strategy Group and the Contact Center Network New Zealand. And he has served as the president of the Global Speaking Federation in 2018 to 19 and was the president of the National Speaking Association of New Zealand. Lots of accolades. Elias has spoken in 13 countries on 4 continents, and he is also the founding partner of the Conscious Leadership team. Hope I didn't miss anything there, Elias.
Righty, I tell you what, that was pretty good. Now I have to live up to that.
Yeah. No, we're really honored to have you here, and we had quite a lot of excitement from the social media, from the Circle of Excellence and the Octopus Tribe. So, yeah, we're excited on the session. Elias, is there anything you'd like to add, or can I just jump in and pick your brain?
Just jump straight in, pick your brain. And what I'm going to say to everybody is if you've got questions, put them into the chat and we'll get to the questions. And I'm sure over time we might even be able to open up some of the lines. This is going to be as interactive as you can get. So strap yourself in, get that seatbelt going. We're going to go for one heck of a ride.
Oh, awesome. So, Elias, you've had an impressive career to date. You were president of the Professional Speakers Association of New Zealand and the president of the Global Speaking Federation. Can you tell us a bit more about your career and how this led to that position?
Yeah, it's a great question to ask because when I started my career, I think I'm pretty much same as a lot of people that we meet on a day-to-day basis. I had a career in the corporate world, and that took me all the way around the world from the UK, where I started my career after I left university, all the way through to Aotearoa, New Zealand. The other side of the world, literally, I could not get any further away if I tried. And when I was across here, as I went through my corporate career, I started to get invited to opportunities to come and speak at conferences. I'm sure many of the people on this call or listening to this podcast will have had a similar experience. But what changed and shifted for me was that after one particular conference, a chap came up to me and he said, "Oh, Elias, I really enjoyed listening to you speak." And he said, "Do you get paid to speak?" And I listened to him. I thought, get paid to speak? Well, I usually got a gift, which was a bottle of wine or maybe a pot plant that I could take home and plant in my garden. So I mentioned that to him. He says, "No, no, no, money, as in real money." I said, "No, I didn't realize you could get paid." And that led me to the Professional Speaking Association here in New Zealand. And being surrounded by other thought leaders, it really helped me to expand my thinking and also to understand that there is a business of speaking as well as an art of speaking. When I think of organizations like Toastmasters, a great global organization that really teaches people about the art of speaking. How do you just get out of the nervousness, understand how to remove the ums and the ahs of what you say, and they're great to give people confidence. But then when you look at the business of speaking, how do you take an idea How do you monetize it? How do you deliver that back out into the marketplace to add value? And for me, the Professional Speaking Association in New Zealand and then the Global Speakers Federation put me alongside many great thought leaders. And what I learned there is as applicable in business as it is in speaking. So everything that I've learned there, I've now applied within my business to help me spread that message and get it out there to a wider audience.
Wow, awesome. Thanks for sharing. And it sounds like you've got a superpower, Elias. What would you say is your superpower?
Wow, if I had a superpower, what would it be? So to be a little bit rude, my kids gave me a mug for Christmas, and the mug said, "I fart. What is your superpower?" But no, that's not my real superpower. I'll clean the room out very quickly if I do that, I can assure you. But I guess my superpower is being me. And it's something that I learned that Mike and Landy really helped me to discover who is the real Elias. And if you can understand who is the real Sam, the real Joni, the real Darren, the real Philippe, the more you understand yourself, the more that you can be authentic out there. And my superpower is connecting with people and being authentic. So if I was to choose that, that would be my superpower.
Well, yeah, you're spot on there, Mike and Landy. Also strongly agree that you have to be authentic. There was actually a video shared on Mike's LinkedIn about authenticity this morning. So just connecting the dots. And as everyone has a superpower, they have a weakness as well. So what would you say is your kryptonite?
Wow, my kryptonite. How long do we have? Because I think I've got tons of kryptonite. I think that if I go back in my history, my upbringing, I was born and raised in Libya in North Africa. So I am the counterbalance to all the South Africans who are living now in New Zealand. But when I was brought up, my dad was a bank officer. My mother was a teacher. And both of them were born, my dad was born in Jerusalem. My mother was born in Palestine, in Bethlehem, when it was Palestine. When the state of Israel was formed, they independently left their homeland, landed up in Libya where they married, started a family. And as I said, I'm the youngest of three siblings. Now, growing up, I remember my dad calling me an idiot. And he used to call me an idiot all the time. Now, what I didn't realize is that my dad called everybody an idiot. And so over time, as I was growing up, I started to doubt myself. So I think of my kryptonite, it was my own mind and how my mind worked. And I'm only talking about myself because I'm sure that nobody else on this call would have that sort of problem where they self-doubt themselves, where they might do things to sabotage what they're trying to do. But if I think of my career and choices I made growing up, starting off my career in the UK, coming here to New Zealand, I'd say my kryptonite was my own thinking. But it's through constant recharging of your mind and making sure that you are constantly checking yourself and making sure that you can continue to grow. That's the only way that I could overcome my own kryptonite.
Yeah, I think in the world this might be a big problem. People doubting themselves. Can I take the next step? Can I do it? Karen responded there, saying absolutely. Joni's saying 100%. Philippe says he's driving. And Sam also, I am your cousin. There's self-doubt. Yeah, no, it's very true. So, Elias, everyone has their up and downs. Has there been any times in your career when you've had to reinvent yourself?
Oh, look, I think I'm reinventing myself all the time. I remember getting involved in the corporate career. So when I came to New Zealand nearly 30 years ago, I ended up getting my first role in New Zealand, where I was selected to head up a group to develop a strategy for Telecom New Zealand around the call center space. We needed to develop something that would stop our competitors from cherry picking the products we were selling. And so this was 30 years ago. So when I arrived, I had to go into an interview 2 weeks in a new country. So I was reinventing myself. It was a new country, new culture, new language, new accent, new food and everything. And then within 2 weeks, I get this job offer. So I then have to go back to my friends in the UK, having bluffed my way through the interview to say, guys, I need some help. What's a call center? So you've got to constantly reinvent yourself and think about what you're doing to drive things forward. Now, over the 30 years I've been here, I've been a general manager. I've led teams in contact centers. I've developed strategies. I've been a consultant. I've been a professional speaker, working my way through. So each of these are reiterations of myself. But what I'm doing, I think, is reinventing myself layer upon layer and just developing these layers that create the real Elias. And every time you're learning something, I have to ask myself, where can I put that back to use again? And invariably, along the way, you might make a mistake. And if you do make a mistake, the question is, how do you learn from it? And who is there in your corner backing you up as a mentor or as a, I don't know, cheerleader? So I am constantly reinventing myself almost on a daily basis.
Yeah. Well, that's really solid advice, and adapting, really, really awesome. So I've mentioned in the introduction, and there's quite a lot of success in your career and in your life being on this earth. What do you put down as a contributor to your success?
I go back to my upbringing with my mum and my dad, irrespective of how I might have been treated or the things that I thought and thought about myself. I learned a couple of values from my parents. If I think about the three values I learned about honesty, I learned about hard work, and I learned about loyalty. And when I look at my parents and how they behaved, those three values became ingrained in the way that I operate and I behave. And I think that I have subsequently taken all of those and applied them back into my life because they've been the mainstay of the things that I've done. But if I was to add one more, I'd add the ability to connect with people. And that ability to connect with people is what's helped me to build trust as I get involved in areas well above my pay scale, but able to then build trust with people who are the experts in that area to ensure them that at the end of the day, I'm their friend and not their foe.
Wow. Yeah, no, that's really amazing. And for those that know Elias, or that has been on his social media, on his pages, websites, you call yourself the fractional CEO. And for those that don't know, can you please explain to us what it is and what does it mean?
Yeah, look, fractional CEO. Let's start off by talking about what a CEO is. So a lot of you will know a CEO, Chief Executive Officer. They're people who come in and take care of a lot of the operational side of the business. They look at delivering the strategy. And I've founded my own business about 15 years ago. So I've been working as a CEO and director within my own business. But as I developed my own business, going out there consulting, working with people, it soon became evident that one of my core skill sets was to work with organizations that were running at a loss and transitioning them into profitable businesses. So as I looked at that, I started to go back to my roots. My roots were in the contact center industry. So I looked at that and I thought, wow, how can I help people within the contact center industry? And a colleague of mine reached out a couple of years ago and said, Elias, I'm going to be applying for the chairperson of the contact center network in New Zealand. Can I rely on you to help me and support me in this journey? And I said, of course, it'll be my pleasure. And over time, he then came and invited me to their conference. And during the conference, we started to have a conversation about me coming in as a speaker at their next conference. And soon it became evident as I was hired in to speak that the organization was losing its course. And as we went through this, I said to them, can I come in and help? I was doing this, working with this organization 15 years ago, and I was in the corporate world. And I knew that I had the skill sets to come in and to help transition them from a club that was losing money all the way through to a professional body that was actually making a change and a difference in this country. And to me, it became evident that this wasn't a full-time role. We're talking about 20 to 30 hours a week. So I turned around to the team and I said, hey, do you mind if I come in and work on a part-time contracted basis to yourselves? And the answer was absolutely, happy to have you in there. I mentioned to them, I said, you can either get pleasing methods or pleasing results. I only give one of them. And I only actually give pleasing results. So it doesn't matter how long it takes. I'll do whatever is needed to get the result. Now, in the role that I'm finding myself in, there was a lot of work at the beginning to get it all going. But as I started to stabilize things, it became quite evident that we were now in a position where I had spare capacity. And that spare capacity has led me into this fractional CEO role. Because if you're doing something well and you're contracted into an organization, but it doesn't take up all of your time, what do you do with your spare time? And I was talking to my coach who's based in the USA. And as I was chatting to my coach said, hey, have you thought about this concept called fractional CEO? It's quite popular in the USA. I said, no, tell me more. And it's about turning around to an organization that cannot afford a full-time person in that role, and then offering your services on a part-time basis. It could be one day a month, or it could be a couple of hours a week. It depends on the type of organization and what they need to happen. So that is how you become a fractional CEO. But if I said fractional CEO, let me replace the back end of that statement with fractional CIO or fractional CMO or fractional whatever it is that you do. Why should you just reserve yourself for one organization when you have the skill sets to work with many? Now, you have to understand that at that time, there is a different cadence in terms of the amount of work each organization will need. But if you do it and time it well, you can actually support a number of organizations who will pay you well to be you and to do the best thing that you can do.
Wow. Yeah, that's very, very interesting and quite eye-opening. And on that, I want to ask, how do you identify your strengths and then leverage them in the marketplace, to get there, basically?
Well, I think to do that, you've got to start off by being honest with yourself. We might think that we're the best speaker in the world or we're the best consultant, and we might be average at best. But at the end of the day, I attended and I'm working through the Institute of Directors certification here in New Zealand. And what we were encouraged to do is to take some personal time out and to write up what we call our governance CV. It's about all the areas that we're involved with that help an organization operate in a better fashion. Now, when you think of a CV, you probably think of something that is chronological. I started working at this job at this time, then over these years I did this, and then I moved to another company, etc. But what they said is actually think about what you do and write down almost like a mind map, all the different things that you do, and then write them down. And you might end up not with a 2 or 3 or 4 page resume, but a 15 or 16 page resume of all the things that you've done. And then ask yourself, out of all these 15 or 16 pages, which are the ones that resonate the most with me? We can do this work. I've worked as a chairperson for organizations like the Global Speakers Federation when I was president across there, or the Professional Speaking Association in New Zealand. But is that something that I really want to continue with? And what I'm going to encourage everybody on this call or listening to this podcast is to ask yourself, what do I do? And then what do I enjoy doing the most? Because you can do something that you just despise. And sometimes you have to do that as part of the role. But do you have to lock yourself in? I don't think so. And I think the next element is to go to some trusted friends, maybe even a spouse. That's a difficult one, by the way, if you have got a spouse, of trusting them to, number one, tell you the truth about yourself, and for you to accept what they might say. But get them to look at the list and tell you what they think are your best attributes. Sometimes it's the blind spots that we have that stops us from seeing what we can do. And if you think you're going to do this all by yourself, good luck. If you figure it out, by the way, come back and tell me, because I've tried doing it by myself, and that's often when I've failed.
Wow. It's a great exercise, and I think we all need to try that out. I see we've got a message here from Joni. Joni says, I love the term fractional, better than interim or part-time, given that the world is in an emotional recession and trust at an all-time low. With my 30 years of leadership experience, you have given me an idea, Elias, to offer services as a fractional CPO. Awesome. Awesome. So Elias, let me jump back to the questions. So I did mention social media, and of course, a very big platform in business and entrepreneurship is LinkedIn. And we've spoken about LinkedIn many times before, but what have you done that has helped you lift up your profile on LinkedIn?
So LinkedIn is one of the most powerful, as we know, business-to-business platforms that we can use. And let me put a disclaimer. I am not Eddie the expert in terms of LinkedIn. Let me put the second disclaimer. I have never invested a single cent in using any paid for advertising on social media, LinkedIn or Facebook. Yet, what I've managed to do is learn from some of the people around about how do we start to get LinkedIn to work for us. So let's first of all turn around and say, what will you do well in terms of LinkedIn to help to elevate your profile? And the first thing I learned, which was about 2 years ago, I was at a conference in Australia, and one of the presenters shared the techniques for how to explode your profile on LinkedIn. And what he turned around and said is, the first thing you want to do on LinkedIn is actually to engage with other people. So let's start off by looking at that. When you first come onto LinkedIn and you probably have an article or a post you want to share, it's great that you've got that. But before you do that, just go in and see other people's posts and spend about 15 minutes just responding to people's posts, liking them, making a comment, doing a reference to an individual and sort of saying, hey, Joni, that's a really good point that you raise across there, and engage with that post. If you do that for about 15 minutes and you add some hashtags in there, I was then told that you go and post your own post. And in your own post, keep it simple. You see a lot of posts nowadays that have like a single line and then another paragraph, another single line. And they're creating stories that are helping us to connect with each other. Now, remember, we had, when back in the olden days, you know, the caveman days, we used to have those campfires, and we all sat around the campfire doing what? Telling stories. So if we're storytellers, let's think about how we can post things onto LinkedIn as a story. Maybe even have a picture that is of that individual with their permission to actually connect in with that story, and add the hashtags, connect in a couple of people and work your way through. But once you finish that, turn around and then continue for another 15 minutes, liking more articles, more posts, commenting on them, and maybe even reposting your article into another group. Because at the end of the day, what we've been taught is that with LinkedIn, you can get more engagement because it'll like you in the algorithm. And then you have to reach out to your key advocates. Who are the people that you get on with the most? And get them to engage with these posts. So recently, at the Contact Center Network New Zealand, we engaged a new agency to look at our brand identity and redesign that. Excuse me. And then we engaged with a digital marketing agency and said to them, look, we haven't got the money to do any advertising. So the head of the agency, who came out of the head of Nielsen IQ and their social advocacy group, said to us, what we need to do is get our executive leadership team to engage in all of these activities. Because when they engage on a post that we put out there, our post reaches their audience. And if you have 4 or 5 people all commenting or resharing your post, that's how you can start to expand your influence in the marketplace. Now, for me, as a fractional CEO, I'm also looking at directorate roles. I found out that a staggering 3% of all directorate roles are advertised. What does that mean? Well, it means that 97% of every role is through word of mouth. How many opportunities are out there that come through word of mouth because somebody knows you that knows somebody else who needs your service? But if you add value as part of the process, then you will have that opportunity to engage more, extend your reach without you having to do all the heavy lifting.
Wow, that's some great advice on LinkedIn and the strategy that one can try. I've also mentioned that before in a previous session we did, and it really does help. Really does. I missed a comment here from Corin saying, "You are an incredible mentor and cheerleader." Thanks, Corin. But
Karen,
that's
I appreciate that.
Not me. Well, for those that know Elias, I know that Elias likes to use the term power in network, and I would like you to share what that means to our audience today.
Which word was that again? Because you just cut out, unfortunately.
Sorry, it's the power in the network phrase.
Oh yeah, power in the network. It's really an extension of what we were talking about before. The power is in the network. So at the end of the day, ask yourself, am I building up a profile and a group of people that I'm connecting in with? I go back to something that I learned many years ago through the author Jim Collins, who authored a book called Good to Great, and then followed up with a second book called How the Mighty Fall. Now, in the book Good to Great, those who've read it will know that he talks about what did certain organizations do. Now, when you measure them on the NASDAQ, they just completely outperformed everybody else. And he looked at those organizations and started to analyze the leadership components behind them. And then he noticed that some of those organizations, a good example could be Kodak, that had an incredible market share and then lost it all when digital cameras came in, even though they held one of the patents for the photo sensors that they use in digital cameras. Now, in the second book, Jim Collins mentions 10 things he recommends people to do. And one of the things is to generate and create your own personal board of directors. Now, that is one of the networks that I talk about, that in-person network that you can develop to have people around you that you can go to on a regular basis. Now, these people quite often are people who are partial mentors for you. So they're people that you might meet up with once a month for a cup of coffee, or possibly somebody who you have every 6 months you get together as a group. Because what we're trying to do is encourage people to turn around and see how you get strength from more than one person. I happen to be a man of faith, and I'm going to share something that I learned as part of my faith, that there is some ancient wisdom, Jewish wisdom that comes out that says, if one puts aside 1,000, two will put aside 10,000. So suddenly when you are joining up with somebody else, you can do something that's even more powerful. So in here, we've got a group of people that have come together through Mike and Landy. And we know the power that when you're spending one-on-one time with Mike and Landy, it is so powerful. But if you then say one puts aside 1,000, two puts aside 10,000, there's another bit of scripture that says a triple braided cord cannot be broken. And the concept behind that is, how do we look at other people to help us? If there's 3 or more of us all working together, what can we accomplish? And my encouragement is to try and figure out, how do these networks get created, and how do you contribute somebody else's network without burning yourself out, but encourage those to contribute towards your network? And you have to, throughout the whole process, build trust with people. Because if you're just there for yourself, they're going to get pretty bored of working with you.
Yeah, no, that makes so good sense. And I think Mike and Lundy refers to the Power Network as the ring of steel in some essence. Ring of steel, yeah. Then I want to ask as well, and I think you get this question quite a lot, is what else have you been doing to solidify your experience and use that to grow your business?
Well, I'm going to go back and reference something that I learned. So you'll often hear me say, if you've listened to me speak before, that you're either green and growing or ripe and rotting. So hopefully everybody on this call is green and growing. You're trying to learn something new. And there might be only one small element of something I say today that can inspire you. So I remember going back and listening to a chap called Big Dave Staunton. So some of us will know Big Dave. He's based out in Melbourne, a great person from the Professional Speakers Australia family. And I remember Big Dave talking to us one day, and Dave said that he used to be a speaker that spoke on the 5 A's. Well, the 5 A's, he said, were he'd talk on any topic, anytime, to any audience, anywhere, at any price. Now, Philippe's already smiling because I've shared this with Philippe many times in the past. If you're going to do that, and he was so clever that people came up to him and said, hey, Dave, can you talk about governance? And being so smart, he'd be able to go and do all the research on governance. And he'd find the 100 known points on governance. But because he's smart, he identified 13 new points that nobody else knew. So he came and he gave his presentation. And during his presentation, he just went, Bang, 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 bang. Every single point, all 113. Then at the end of his presentation, his audience were looking at him with big saucers in their eyes, and they walked away, never to see Big Dave again. And Big Dave started to think about this. He said, why are they doing that? Well, part of it was the fact that at the end of the day, what they were doing was getting every bit of information. So what else was there for them to get? So Big Dave decided that instead of giving them everything and talk about any topic, anywhere, to any audience, any price, at any time, he would turn around and look at his core skills. And he decided to narrow that down to a small niche that was about a centimeter wide, but a kilometer deep. And as soon as Dave came back to that niche, that's when things changed for him. And I think for me, it's been the same. It's about applying what are my core skills. Yes, I can be the jack of all trades, or I can be the king of one or two. And as I've started to narrow my focus and then get rid of the distractions, the more distractions I can get rid of, the more focused I can become to work on what I need to do to help accomplish the goals that I have. So I'm hoping, Chris, that's a long-winded answer, but gives you an answer to your question.
That's a great answer. Thank you, Elias. And then when it comes to goal setting, I know I'm picking your brain quite a lot here, but it's very interesting, and it's always so nice chatting with you. So when it comes to goal setting, how important is that to you?
Oh, that is the most important element. Number one, I'm incredibly competitive, and I'm also incredibly passionate. So when I look at things that I do, I really want to accomplish a lot. Now, about 9 months ago, we put together a program called The Gathering. So I'm part of an ecosystem here at a shared office space called The Crate on the North Shore here in Auckland. And the owner of The Crate, Dean Payne, and I, with a couple of other people, were delivering a program called Business with Locals. And we go out to our network of professional speakers, and we get people in once a month to come and share. But as we were doing this, we just felt there was something missing. There was not enough happening. People would come 1 month, we would see them, and then maybe they might come again a month or two down the track and then disappear, sometimes never to be seen again. So we looked at this and thought, well, why don't we develop an ecosystem which is based around a 90-day action plan? And Dean had gone through the business blueprint with Dale Beaumont. Some of you might have come across that as a program. And that was an incredibly powerful way of us saying, how do we change from being scattergun all the way through to the focus of what we're going to do within 90 days? Well, we can come down to a total of 5 key goals. So we really just want to have the opportunity of focusing on 5 key activities over the next 90 days. Not 105, not 53, just 5. And for many of us on this call, listening to this podcast, is going to be a challenge for you, because you probably have so many things grabbing at your attention all the time. And for me, this aspect of a 90-day action plan that has 5 key goals. And by the way, each of these key goals are SMART goals. And you'll know all the acronyms: SMART: specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, time-bound. So every 90 days, we get together. And the first thing we do is we set the scene for the day. So many people work in their business, not on their business. So we turn around and say, this day, have a blue sky day. Turn around and say to yourself, one of the first things I'm going to do is I'm going to switch off my phone. I'm going to put my out of office on my email. I'm going to have a relaxing day, or I'm going to do something I don't normally do. For some people, it might be to go and have a Thai massage, or for some people, it will be go and have fish and chips on the beach. Others might want to just go and do some 10-pin bowling or organize a meal at a restaurant. But what we do is we then take a blank piece of paper. Now, I use this thing called the Remarkable. And I literally go in there with a blank piece of paper and I say to myself, okay, what am I thinking? Can I take some time out so I'm not just focused on my business and just start to process some key activities? What am I looking to accomplish? What's been bugging me? If I could do it differently, what would I do? What are the real goals? And allow my mind to rest, to unpack itself. Because sometimes you get these flashes of inspiration when you're not worried about other things. Now, for many people who've never done a blue sky day before, it's a challenge. How do you unwind and unravel yourself from your business? Because at the end of the day, you need to have that ability to distance yourself from the tasks and the processes, to allow your brain to filter through some of the stuff that's in the back of your mind. You're thinking, I should be doing that. Because the more you can do that and then apply that to your 5 goals, and your goals could be physical, it could be emotional, it could be business related. It doesn't really matter, but there are going to be things that you're going to do over the next 90 days. And if you can, you break that back down to the next 60 days or the next 30 days or the next week. And within the framework that we use, we have an action plan card that actually has 12 weeks that you tick off against each goal. Have I done something to keep me focused? Do I have this action plan on me at all times? Because once you realize what you're focused in on, then you can make good, profitable decisions about what to do in your business. Ask yourself, when somebody comes to have a meeting with you, will this meeting lead me to one of my 5 personal goals? If the answer is no, then you should really try and avoid that meeting if you can. Defer it off. Can you delegate it to somebody else? Can you get them to work their way through with another way of resolving that request of your time? Because if you don't have control over your own calendar, you're going to find yourself subject to everybody's whim, and that's going to result in failure of not accomplishing the goals that you have.
Wow. So many great advice you've shared on this podcast, on this webinar and podcast so far. And I want to touch base on our last session we had together. And the last time I interviewed you, we spoke about your 9/11 experience and how has that affected your chapter on your career now?
Gosh, 9/11, that was nearly 23 years ago this year. 23 years on, it's still affecting us all. And when you think about the experience of 9/11, so those who've not heard the story briefly, you'll see things like the book Leading from the Stop behind me. I was flying from London Heathrow to Chicago in America on that fateful day. And halfway through the flight, I was one of 38 aeroplanes that was diverted to Newfoundland in Canada. And the town of Gander that we landed in woke up that morning, 9,300 for breakfast. By the time 38 planes landed, nearly 7,000 passengers between those 38 planes and crew meant that they had 16,000 for supper. Everything came to a stop in an instant. Think back to where you were on 9/11 and what happened in your life. If you think about the airline industry, that just stopped instantaneously. No more flights for a couple of days. If you think about the tourism industry in New York City, that evaporated as a result of the terrorist acts. I was on my way as part of a global speaking tour to Chicago. That conference was cancelled. Now, did I say 9/11? Because I could have said global financial crisis. I could have said the earthquake in Christchurch, or COVID, or something else is going to happen in the future that will cause us to stop. And when I think about this, whilst we did stop, we had to quickly change. And there was three key things I learned out of the whole experience, which is as applicable today as it was the day that we had 9/11. The very first thing I learned, and I apply it still today, is to look after myself first. I'm going to encourage you to look after yourself first. As you're going through challenges in your business, what are you doing to help yourself? Are you putting that oxygen mask on yourself first, as they encourage you to do when you're on an airplane, or do you put it on the person next to you? Look after yourself first. It's the most important element, especially in these times of mental health challenges that we have. If that's the first thing that I learned, the second thing I learned is to look after others. You need to expand your own network. And I've seen people who have influenced me over the COVID period and are still on a regular basis calling me up at least once a week just to touch base, see how I am. And I've used the same principles to look after others. So go and expand your network, look after others is the second thing we learned. And the third thing is to change the rules. Because after 9/11, everything to do with travel, for example, stopped and changed. We never had that same ability to walk up to a gate as a visitor sending off one of our loved ones. The security changed, the way that we operated, the way that business operates also changes. So as you think about yourself and you say, okay, I've reached to this point in my career, is it time for you to now change yourself? Is it time for you to change the rules? Is it time for you, like Journey, to become that fractional CPO, that fractional CEO, and use the skill sets that you've acquired over time? Because here's the interesting thing. Let's count from 1 to 100. If I asked you to count 1 to 100, you go 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way up to 100. But when you reach 100, what's the next number? 101, 102. You're starting again from 1, but now at a higher level. So all the experiences that you've had are accumulating so that when you go and reinvent yourself as a fractional CEO, you can bring that learning into the organization, saying that whilst I'm starting again from number 1 with this organization, I'm bringing that wealth of experience behind me. And that's the difference that working with people like Mike and Landy, being part of the COE and being part of the global intelligence briefings has helped me to ensure that I'm consistently looking at growing myself and adding value to those around me.
Wow. Yeah, thanks so much, Elias, for that. That's really great advice. And I hope the AI is taking notes on that one. I see Philippe shared quite a few links. Thank you so much on that, Philippe. I've also shared Elias's website. You guys can check him out. And Philippe has shared the LinkedIn so you can connect with Elias. And if there's any questions from you guys, I've run out of questions. I think I've picked his brain enough. So if there's anything else anyone would like to ask, you guys are more than welcome. Throw it in the chat, unmute yourself, and chat with us. Yeah, but thank you so much, Elias. Wow, you've shared so much insight and advice. I think we can all really take it quite a far road. And I see Joni's got a question for us. Yeah.
No, I just got a big thank you for Elias. Thank you very much for that insight. And my experience of you is really always authentic, and no wonder you network so well. So thank you for sharing some insights. And particularly actually just the small things like LinkedIn is to go in there and follow people and make those comments. I'm trying to write 3 times a week on LinkedIn. Most weeks I get it right, but I'm not good at going in and just commenting on other people's stuff all the time and, building those relationships. So I've made a note to start doing that tomorrow. So thank you very much for that practical advice.
You're very welcome, Joni. In fact, can I add one more element as part of the learning? And by the way, if you have a question, feel free to unmute your line and throw out the last couple of minutes. So I'm being currently mentored by Dr. John B. Molador. So Dr. John used to be the president of the National Speaking Association. Those of you who have the privilege of getting to know Dr. John, I met him through the Global Speakers Federation. He is literally, he's a neuroscientist. He heads up the faculty at Michigan State University that looks at how the brain operates. Now, he gave me some good advice. He said, Elias, when you are organizing yourself, do a couple of things. First of all, recognize that you only have about 90 minutes of real productive time in the day. So I think they refer to this as Alterian cycles. And in these cycles, you have to figure out which is the 90 minutes of the day where you are the most productive. You might get 2 of these cycles throughout the day. The second thing he said is that if you're spending 90 minutes, for example, in front of the computer on a Zoom call, walk away from the computer after 90 minutes, go to a window, because during the 90 minutes, your focus is right here. That's where your focal point is. Get yourself out there, look outside, maybe even get outside of the building and just expand out and look out there. So your brain starts to think in this other area. Then John said to me, create different zones in your office. Now, this office I have here is only 4 meters by 2 meters. So it's a small office, but yet I've created little zones. I have a productivity zone where I do certain research. I have another productivity zone where I sit there and just relax and read and try and expand my brain, all the way through to a zone where I sit and do my emails. Now, here's the kicker. One last bit of advice. Last bit of advice is if you're going to create these zones, book them into your calendar, but with one twist. And the twist is that when you book them in, give these tasks a specific name. So I'll give you an example. Maybe you want to call it George Clooney or Brad Pitt or Jennifer Aniston. And then when you book it into your calendar, you're actually booking a meeting with Jennifer Aniston or Brad Pitt. So this way, when somebody comes to you to say, hey, can we have a meeting? So sorry, I'm meeting with Brad. And you have a genuine excuse not to be interrupted in your calendar.
Oh, that's lovely. That's Dr. John Molador gives fantastic advice, and that's really that's sound advice because the brain association is so good, and then the likelihood of being disciplined and sticking to your own meeting is far more likely. I love that. That's awesome, and it's great humor, as Dr. John always shares his great humor.
Awesome. Thank you for that, Joni. And then I see we've got a comment from Darren saying, great inspiration to get the mind in the right direction again. We tend to lose focus on what is important to me. Yeah, thanks for that as well, Darren. So if there's any other questions, we are running a little bit low on time. So you've got a few more minutes of Elias's time. And Philippe says, thank you, merci. Thank you, Elias, you are a gem. Really is. Awesome. So if that is that, thank you everyone for joining us live and offline. And of course, our guest for the week, Elias, thank you so much for joining us. And we really advise that you gave us. And I hope you guys have a great week ahead. You want to say something, end it off with, Elias?
So the only thing I want to turn around to you is get back to your key focus. So invest a little bit of time to get those 90-day action plans going. And the more you can focus on that, the more you're going to achieve. And then just get Brad, get Jennifer into your calendar and have some fun along the way. Thank you, Chris, for hosting me on this podcast. And it's been an absolute pleasure to invest some of my time with everybody on the call. I want to thank you for your time coming in at all times of the day around the world. Just listen to a little old Kiwi from the North Shore here in Auckland. Bye for now.
Bye, everyone. See you guys next week.
Thanks so much. That was a valuable time spent. Thank you, Elias. Thank you, Chris.
Bye-bye.